Welcome back to another edition of This Month at the TNM. It's November already. Hope everyone has a happy and blessed Thanksgiving season. We've got a lot to be thankful for, but this month we're going to look at a very real issue our fellow Texans are facing every day. There are multiple problems that are being caused by the failure of the federal government to address the flood of migrants at our southern border. Some are not so pretty. Imagine your daughter or other family member being kidnapped by an evil man that intends to sell her into sex trafficking to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, while this young lady is submitted to torture and rape by men that see her as property. People are not the only thing being smuggled across the border. Guns and drugs are flowing across the Rio Grande virtually unchecked. Since the launch of Operation Lone Star, a Texas-run multi-agency effort, more than 317,000 migrants have been caught, leading to more than 21,000 criminal arrests, resulting in more than 18,600 felony charges. DPS has seized over 342 million lethal doses of fentanyl during this border mission. The federal government has had more than enough time to secure our southern border and stop this tragedy from happening on our home territory. When Texas is independent, we will secure our borders, and we will prosecute anyone that commits these crimes. Texans will not welcome those violating our laws with open arms. Texans will have the opportunity to choose a more welcoming legal immigration policy that encourages those that want to be a Texan and identify with our principles to become Texas citizens. We'll do the right thing because that's what being Texan is: having integrity, keeping promises, protecting our fellow Texans. Love thy neighbor is being a Texan. By the same token, don't mess with Texas is our promise, not a threat. Our border with Mexico is wide open, unprotected, and understaffed because of the federal government. An estimated 1.5 million illegal immigrants entered the United States between November 2020 and November 2021, and only 61% of those are Mexican nationals. How many dollars have we as Texans had to spend to protect ourselves from the dangers coming at us from the South? Yes, under the previous administration, we had a wall being built, and the Remain in Mexico plan was working. What about the years prior? What was stopping the illegal aliens, drug cartels, and the traffickers? Over the last 15 years, Texans have paid and allocated nearly $7 billion in state tax dollars to attempt to do a task clearly delegated to the federal government by the states. That's over $400 per voting age Texas citizen. Despite this enormous burden, in addition to federal border spending, the Texas border illegal crossings and arrests are at an all-time high. As an extra slap in the face to Texans, the federal government has actively worked to stop Texas initiatives to assist the federal government in its constitutional obligation, even going so far as suing the state of Texas. Enough time has passed, and the problem has grown exponentially worse. Either the federal government is unwilling or incapable of securing the border. Let's think about the U.S.-Canadian border. You've probably heard very little, if anything, about border issues with Canada. The U.S. shares 5,525 miles of border with Canada, while Texas shares only 1,254 miles with Mexico. We can't keep illegals out of Texas, but the 13 U.S. states that border Canada don't have the same problems. Why is that? You have to have a joint agreement between the nations to secure the borders. Canada has accomplished that with agencies they've created to do their part, such as the Canada Border Services Agency and the Binational International Boundary Commission. There's an International Joint Commission to handle water boundaries. The U.S. has the Customs and Border Protection. The U.S. works with Canada to secure our borders by maintaining a relationship for the economic benefit of both countries. Why isn't there an agreement between the U.S. and Mexico the same as Canada? Because Mexico has been allowed by the federal government to not cooperate with Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California. The federal government could put economic pressure on Mexico. They could apply tariffs to the manufactured goods or completely shut down imports from Mexico. The Mexican government isn't in charge of the border, though. The drug cartels run the border, and the Mexican government allows it to go on. The common goal of travel agreements between two self-governing nations is boosting the economy. On the Mexican border, the people that are making the most money are the drug cartels and their coyotes, and they are paying the Mexican government. When Texans are governing Texas, we'll need to negotiate with Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico to develop a plan of mutual interest for transportation and economic growth while maintaining high standards for security. We have an opportunity to put these reasonable immigration policies in place, something the federal government has failed to do year after year. When we're independent, Texans, and Texans alone, can decide the best policies and practices to address the current invasion on our southern border. Yes, I did say invasion on the border. It'll take our Texas military to secure all 85 roads that cross our boundary lines, 28 of those being crossings between Mexico and Texas. As you recall from a previous video, we have the Texas Military Force comprised of the Texas State Guard, the Texas National Guard, and the Texas Air Guard. In addition to these forces, there's more than enough active law enforcement to protect our borders. As of 2021, there are more than 16,000 U.S. Border Patrol officers on the southwest border sector, not just Texas. We could have our own Texas Customs and Border Patrol, task our military to defend our borders instead of those of other nations, or add a division to an existing Texas security agency to maintain the border and prevent illegal entry. Texas immigration and customs enforcement could also be handled by new or existing agencies to detain and deport those entering Texas illegally. There's plenty of Texas woman and manpower available to protect our border, and it may well result in a cost savings over what we're paying the federal government to not do the job and to turn around and sue us for doing the job for them. With Border Patrol and our Texas military in place, the process to travel beyond our borders would be no different from what we experience today. Every day, more than 1 million legal crossings are made between Mexico and the United States. Passports aren't even required, as our U.S. government allows Mexican citizens to use border crossing cards. When Texas is a country, we'll probably rely on passports primarily to travel from Texas. We already have a system in place for 90-day work visas. If you live in Texas but work out of the country, essentially you could use the same system. If you live in Texas, say close to the border where your daily job is in Oklahoma or Louisiana where you commute daily, you could also use a border crossing card. Travel across borders from Texas could very easily model all other international travel. Do you think that our new Texas government, given the opportunity to independently handle our Texas-Mexico border, would treat it like a swinging door in a saloon? Sometimes it's hard to imagine the possibilities because we conflate the treatment of American citizens by our federal government with the new, free, and independent Texas president and legislatures. We aren't Washington. We're Texans. Think about what it means to be Texan. This is how Ryan McCubbin, who served as one of our district directors, defines being a Texan.
What does it mean to be a Texan? Well, unlike most modern people, we still harbor an identity tied to our past and rooted in the very soil of our homeland. Our forefathers were rugged frontiersmen and settlers. They were colonists that tamed a vast and wild land. They built churches, schools, towns and villages, hospitals and universities to benefit their fellow Texans and future generations. And we still take risks, and we love freedom and adventure. And like our Texas Rangers, we believe that law and order and truth and justice are just as much a part of our identity as our Texian colonists are. Like our cowboys and our roughnecks, we believe in the value of hard work. We fight hard, we play hard, and we never quit. And come Sunday, we worship the Lord. That is a Texan.
Thanks, Ryan. As Texans, we know what needs to be done to secure our border, and we don't shy away from it like the federal government has been. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next month.